All right, welcome. So, why do I think everybody should play sports? I'm not saying that everybody and their mother should play American football, but I am saying that everybody should have an activity that they call theirs, right? A sport that they play or engage in consistently or regularly. And the reason that I say this is because that one of the main reasons that we've become so addicted to things like social media and other forms of low value stimulation or enjoyment or entertainment is because everybody needs this level of play, this level of engagement in something that's fun and enjoyable, beyond just work, right? So obviously I say everybody should structure work in a way that is enjoyable for them. But beyond work, we should also be doing things, having activities in our day to day that are fun activities, that are just for the sake of having a good time, right? Letting out some energy. And really, the importance of this is because most people become depressed when they don't have things to do that are enjoyable or fun, right? So everybody should play sports in the sense that everybody should have a sport that they call theirs, that they consider to be a fun thing that they do if they have free time available. That way, free time isn't filled up with things like stimulation and low value pleasure. So the reason why fun is the key to getting rid of depression is because depression only happens when we're in a state of stagnancy. Depression only happens when we get disconnected with our natural need for being outside, being in nature, being active. And we end up being sedentary as a result of not doing those things, right? We have our phones, so we can just sit on the couch all day and scroll on our phones and feel as though we're living just as rich of a life as we would if we weren't on the device. However, the problem is the experiences that we're consuming aren't our own. And so when I say everybody should have a sport, I really just mean everybody should have a game, an activity, a physical form of movement beyond just going to the gym or beyond just basic walking and running that they engage with other people in that is something that they can do regularly. For example, me and my brother, we both play soccer. We both love soccer. He's a little bit more into soccer than I am. I personally am focused on snowboarding. I want to be a great snowboarder. His thing is soccer, right? He wants to be the best goalie in the world, right? And for me personally, I grew up playing soccer, so I love soccer. I still play soccer. So whenever we're just home, bored, we have nothing to do, right? We very consistently just go out and play soccer together. Versus, the alternative really for us with the age gap, with the age difference, is we just don't talk to each other. We just don't hang out with each other much. There's not much that we do. But when there's a game, when there's like a competitive sport that we're playing, we could go for hours and hours and hours and have, all the fun in the world. And so that's kind of the utility of it, is it's something that you can fall back onto when you have nothing else to do. That way you're not eroding relationships by having, too much to do in your day, right? I work a lot. I have two businesses I'm running. We're currently working on a third. Plus, I train as a professional athlete. So I have a lot in my schedule. I have a very busy day typically. But what I do is I always make sure that I can make time for, just going out and playing soccer with him, playing sports with him. And I accredit that to being one of the main reasons why I'm so successful and why I'm able to sustain the effort and the workload required to become successful. Because when you have these things that allow you to decompress, that aren't going to completely derail you from what you're trying to achieve. So for example, the alternative is scrolling. If I was to scroll, I completely throw off my ability to focus and work and put in effort for long periods of time. Whereas something like a sport, if you go and you play for a couple hours, you're actually increasing attention span. You're working to increase attention span. But you're also just developing overall fitness. You're developing skills. You are creating mastery within something. And that, in and of itself, having a high level of skill in something is a state of bliss, right? It gives you a state of bliss, this feeling of bliss. And so all of these things act to counteract depression. So why people need to have activity in their lives is very simple, right? People need to be moving. When we aren't moving, we become depressed, we become sadistic, we become very just negative, and we have this internal state of almost a negative outlook on the world, right? And that is because we are observing as our world implodes on us, right? It implodes on us, right? And what I mean by this is essentially when we are still, when we aren't moving, when we aren't progressing, the world around us collapses onto us and we become stuck, right? And this is how death happens. This is how death begins, is we basically get into this consistent state of being stuck where we are. And what happens when we aren't moving forward, we're actually moving backwards, just very, very slowly. And you can you can think about this as the opposite effect. When you begin trying to make progress, when you first, got into this journey, you were pushing very hard, right? Trying to make a lot of effort, movement forward. But it felt like you weren't really going anywhere for a while. The same feeling is going to affect you in reverse, right? So yes, you're moving forward, but you're actively moving forward. When you're still, you're not actually still, you're actively moving backwards, but at the same rate you initially moved forward, right? So you know how slow the progress was when you first got on this journey. The descent will come on just as slowly in the beginning, and then it will rapidly fall off in the end, right? And so the reason why activity is so important is it keeps us moving. The other reason why activity is so important is it's essential for our body. Our bodies need to move. The reason why we build fat, anybody who has fat anywhere on their body, it's because you're sedentary. It's because you don't move enough. It's because your body, when you eat food, doesn't have anything to use the energy for, so it just stores it. And that's all fat is stored energy. So when I say okay, somebody wants to lose fat, how much activity are you getting? Are you active? Are you moving? Are you actually out there doing things during the day? And if you're not, then that's the problem, right? You need to be active, you need to be moving. And the third thing is your brain, right? Your brain's health is best when your body is consistently active, moving, and you're getting good exercise in. I believe this one goes unsaid. I believe a lot of people are aware of the mental benefits of exercise, but without proper activity in our lives, our brains can't work to fullest capacity. So next is how to get into sports if you've never even done one before, right? So for those of you who have never played a sport before, who spent their whole lives thinking they're unathletic, if you are somebody who has looked at sports as foreign their entire lives, how do you actually get into sports? What do you do to get into a sport? The first thing that I say is get into a solo sport. So if you are completely out of shape, you've been out of shape your whole life, you don't want to just jump right into some competitive sport with a bunch of people who've been athletes their whole lives and have trained the sport their whole lives. You'll feel discouraged. You won't actually have fun and a good time. Remember, I'm talking about having fun here more than I'm talking about becoming the best of something or the best at something, the elite at something. Although that is what my channel is focused towards, I have been making a lot of content catered towards beginners. So this is really about those who just want to get more activity in their lives and have fun. If that's you, you're not going to want to go and play, an elite level sport at the highest level and try to compete your way to the top. That's just not going to work, right? You're not going to be able to fight your way to the top with that one. What I would suggest to you, though, is get into simple activities that will get you fit, right? So if you've never played a sport your entire life, you've never done any sort of physical activity, or obviously most people, that's not the case. Most people have done a sport or they've had some level of physical activity throughout their life, but they aren't necessarily in shape. They aren't necessarily really fit or at least confident in their level of fitness. What I would say to those people is just start off with a consistent gym and cardio routine. Regularly running, and I mean running outside, not on the treadmill, regularly running, and then also being in the gym as much as possible. What I would recommend for beginners, however, is 3 days a week in the gym and at least 1 to 2 days a week running. If not, 4 days a week running is ideal. Or obviously, if you don't want to run 4 days, you could increase gym time to 5 days a week, run 2 days a week, whatever. The basic point is you have a gym day, you have a rest day, that's a cardio day. You do cardio that day, right? And we talk about rest days. Rest days only really apply to weightlifting, resistance training. You don't need rest days when it comes to cardiovascular exercise. Your body can sustain it over long periods of time as long as you aren't overdoing it. If you are overdoing it, you'll know, your body will tell you. But if you aren't overdoing it, you should be able to sustain consistent cardio exercise every day. If you're doing a mile run, you could do that every day, absolutely no problems. In fact, you'll feel amazing. You'll feel the best you've ever felt if you were to do that every single day. So that is how I would recommend getting into fitness. But then once you've gotten to a certain level of endurance and physical fitness, what I would recommend is you get into an actual sport, right? So this is where we actually look at what sports are good for you. So if you think back throughout your lifetime, you think about any games you might have played with your friends early on. If you think of like any activities you may have done in the past that seemed natural to you, or maybe not even natural. Maybe you really struggled to do it, but you had this passion for it, right? You really liked and enjoyed that specific form of activity. Many examples, like running, for example. A lot of people are keen for running. That's why they love things like soccer. Playing soccer is basically just running all day long, every day. There are certain people who have a knack for jumping, right? Basketball, snowboarding. A lot of people have a knack for technical tricks, right? Skateboarding, snowboarding, surfing, for example, right? A lot of people have this keenness for waves and flow and whole body movement. Surfing, snowboarding, skateboarding. A lot of people just like to hit shit, all right? American football. If you're somebody who just likes to chill, maybe do some swimming, right? Swimming's a great one. If you love riding your bike, mountain biking, or just riding your bike on the road, great exercises, right? Great sports to get into. So if you open your perception of what sports are beyond just the typical competitive sports we grew up with in school, like soccer, football, what's another one? Baseball. You open yourself up to the reality that there are a lot of sports out there. There are a lot of different things out there. And I guarantee that with enough effort, everybody could find something that's unique to them and that's really good for them. So what I would do is when you're looking at this, I'm not saying like go and, force yourself to become an elite athlete to go and play sports. I'm saying play a sport that is designed for you and who you are, really. And then start to develop some fitness within that, start to grow and progress within that. So building your fitness and health over time. This is key. Once you get into this, you have to realize this is a lifelong journey. This is why I say sports are for everyone. Because a lot of people are like, well, I've never played a sport. Well, I can't play a sport right now because I'm fat and overweight. But the reality is fitness is a lifelong thing. Fitness is a lifelong journey. It's something that you should be constantly pursuing at all turns of your life, all twists and turns within your life. You should be pursuing some level of fitness. What level of fitness you pursue is up to you and your goals, but everybody should have some level of fitness as a maintenance, as a foundation to their lifestyle. So what I say is build the mentality, build the mindset, develop the awareness that this is a process that is a lifelong journey. That's why I say find the sport you love, find the sport that is just bliss to you, find the sport that is fun to you and that you feel like you could progress in and become really good in. Because remember, competence translates to enjoyment and how much fun you have. So how competent you are at something determines how enjoyable it is. For certain people, I am one of these people, for example, I have this knack for things that are difficult to me are enjoyable. Right? I get a lot of pleasure from things that are difficult. So that seems opposing to what I just said. But the reason that's the case is because I've over time built the awareness that things that are difficult means this is an opportunity for me to become competent, right? This is an opportunity for me to learn a new skill, and therefore that creates a level of bliss. So humans are innately wired to seek out progression and learning new things. So when it comes to fitness and playing a sport, you want a sport that you feel like you'd progress in, that you'd really enjoy and have fun in. And the main reason is we want this to be a progression that we pursue for our entire lives. We want this to be something that we have as a foundation to our lifestyle for the rest of our lives. And that's key, because if we give up early, if we don't consistently stay on top of this, eventually the negatives will hit us, right? If we are growing old and we decide there's no point in exercising anymore because, I won't be able to play sports like I did when I was young, remember that the new utility for exercise is longevity and functionality. If you decide that you're too old for exercise, well, guess what? Old age will be a bitch. But if you are willing to keep up on it throughout old age, well, you can have more longevity, you can have more mobility, you can have more functionality within your body. Then the next guy who gives up on fitness because he's already 65, right? Oh, my life's already passed me by. Why try? The point of trying is that everything is much more enjoyable when you are consistently staying on top of this. So there are utilities for exercise, for this type of training, for sports throughout your entire life. Don't count yourself out for any specific reason. Don't count yourself out because you may have a different body type or fitness level now, right? Don't count yourself out because of any of this. The reason why I say it's so important for everybody is because anybody can do it at a small level and build up wins over time and get to a point where they have actually created major results, major changes in their lives because of this small action that they took. 20 minutes a day going and swimming. Simple things like that. Maybe 30 minutes to an hour a day they go biking. Those simple things could make massive differences in your life. So that's why I made this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to see more content like it, go ahead and subscribe. Comment down below anything you may have learned from the video. I'm always curious to see what you guys have. But yeah, that is all from me, and I'm out of here. Peace.